We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Gotta have my notes. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Gotta have my notes. Alternator. Hey, everybody. We have fun. Hey, everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Right here, right now. It's John Myers. We like to give stuff away. Alternator. Post some more pictures. We got to thank Steve and Becky live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Don't forget Texas Roadhouse right here, right now. Hey, everybody. Don't forget right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. Had a great dinner tonight. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. Had a great dinner tonight. So, hey, everybody. So, housekeeping. Had a great dinner tonight. So, alternator. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. 7:30 on Tuesday night. Housekeeping. From the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Housekeeping. Right here, right now. Hey, everybody. So, it's John Myers. Hey, everybody. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Hey, everybody. From the Kicker UnMasked Studios. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Right here.
It's Tuesday, September 13th, and this is Kicker UnMasked. I know I'm not John Myers, I'm not Aaron Malin, I'm Bart Deal. I'm the guest host tonight, and in the house we've got Tim behind the camera, we've got Sandy in the back of the house running things, we've got Ernie, he's always here, he's the director of the show, and of course Bill Frog handling our multimedia and social media. So sit back and relax, and you know who else is in the show? He's here. We'll be back in a minute, but sometimes somebody said something about what we had for dinner, and I'm supposed to talk about that. I kind of thought that was kind of a little bit weird, but we ate at, guess it, Texas Roadhouse. I had some rattlesnake bites, and I'll tell you, they were delicious, and no, I don't have to go to the hospital because I didn't get bitten. I just ate them. They were good. So stick with us. We'll be back in a flash. Was that okay?
It's been a long road since the original Kicker christened that first pickup truck. It kicked off a car audio renaissance, and upgrading your music in a vehicle was a requirement. America's music machines became living loud over your passion, your emotion, your existence. Outdoors or on the open road, your sound is Kicker.
Welcome back to the show, and I am super excited at our guest, Mr. Wayne Harris. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks.
So good to see you. It's been a long time.
Yeah, a long time. It's an honor to be here.
Wayne and I go way back. We used to compete in the circuit back in the early 80s, and we ended up working at the same company for a while. That would be the Rockford Fosgate. And we've gone in different directions, but stayed friends and stayed in this industry. It's a crazy world, you know? And we're here to talk about all that, Wayne, right?
That's right.
You know, a lot of people know your name. You've been this figure piece, this, in some places, almost vaporous. Oh man, that guy's a legend. They've heard your name, particularly hobbyists and people that have made this a profession. We've all heard the name Wayne Harris. But I bet you there's a lot of people out there, particularly the newbies, young people. Yeah, I'm an old guy. Particularly the newbies, that they might not know the story of Wayne Harris and how it all got started. It's kind of an inspirational story of somebody that, you know, decided he wanted to do something and he did it. So why don't you start at the beginning? How did it all start, Wayne?
Well, you're asking a lot. I mean, this goes back to before the internet and before flip phone, before cell phones. So that's something people can relate to.
The dinosaurs, come on, you know.
You know, I've always been in electronics my whole life, and I've always been in music. I actually went to college on a music scholarship. So one of the things I like to do is I try to take my hobbies and turn them into some type of business endeavor. I guess the first time when I first got involved in high performance car audio was before high performance car audio even existed. So when I was going to college for electrical engineering back in the 79 and 80 time frame, 81, 82, you know, I was driving a Buick Regal, let's be real, and I was single, and you're not going to go out and find any young ladies with a Buick Regal. So I tried to take the things that I knew something about, and that was audio, electronics, and so that's when I first built my first competition vehicle, which was called Eruption. It was a Buick Regal. And by the way, there's some videos and pictures and stuff of that vehicle on my website at TermPro.com. But in those days, you know, you couldn't go out and buy a 10-inch woofer or a 12-inch woofer. You couldn't buy high output alternators, capacitors, bus bars, even amplifiers where high performance amps just didn't exist. I mean, that was a day when people were using 6x9s and 10 of mind blowers and booster amps, maybe.
Guilty.
Yeah, guilty. So anyway, I put together this eclectic mix of both home and car audio products. And I heard about a competition, a car stereo competition. This was in 1984 down in Texas. And I could not believe that something like that existed. So I was so excited, and I went to that contest, and I believe I came in second place. But it was enough to get my blood going, and so I started spending all of my money on car audio. I mean, I remember when I had a $15 a month food budget, bologna burritos, ramen noodles, and yet I would spend
chicken pot pie,
$1,500 on an amplifier, you know. And so anyway, later in that fall, 1984, there was the very first car audio national championship in Houston, Texas at the Astrodome. And so I went to that show, and I ended up winning first place. I got a check for $5,000, which was barely enough to cover all of the money that I had borrowed from the bank to buy the equipment that I had put in my car. But that was the first step. And that's actually a point in my life where I met some very influential people, or people that went on to be very influential in the industry, like John France. I don't know if you know Richard Clark or Dave Navone.
Yep.
Dave was actually a judge at that show. And it also got me noticed by the place where I was buying my equipment. So, and I don't know if you want to delve into that yet, but that's kind of like the next chapter.
That's the next chapter. Well, I remember the early days, and it was Thunder on Wheels.
That's right.
George Reed, Doc Thunder himself,
yes,
was the one that was running these shows, and he did it so that guys like us, one, had a place to go play, but also it helped car stereo businesses make themselves relevant in their own communities. I remember he was at our shop one time when we were having a contest, and I was amazed that, okay, I spend all night building these vehicles, trying to make them look good, sound great, and I get 5 points for the install. I get 6 points for the sound quality, but it's 1 for 1 for SPL. And back then it was, if you hit 140, you were just amazing.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, George, how come so much weight is put on SPL when I got a fantastic sounding, great looking vehicle, and yet some guy with something that looks like hell can come in and blow me away SPL and win? And he says, let me equate it to you this way. People go to a drag race, not to watch a car go from point A to point B at a specific speed and then turn around and do a bracket track and do it again within a certain percentage. No. They go to the drag races to watch that car go from point A to point B as fast as humanly possible, as loud as humanly possible, and hopefully crash on the way.
Yeah.
That's what's exciting. So SPL is that. It's a drag race. So yeah, it was an amazing time. But you're right, it got you noticed.
Well, the thing is, I guess at heart, I've always been a demo guy. So to me, what I wanted to, before social media, before cell phones, before the internet, if people wanted to socialize, they had to go out and hang out with their friends. Nowadays, half the time people don't ever see each other. But I could pull into a parking lot. I wanted to pull my car into a parking lot, open the doors, and have it sound like a rock concert. And I'm not talking burp tones. I'm talking old school, Hair Nation, rock and roll that is just will blow your head away. And I could pull into a parking lot like that, open the doors, crank it up, and it would be like a moth to the flame. Hundreds of people would just descend on the vehicle. And you know what? It even happens to this day. I see at car shows, at DB drag race events, or any kind of big event with car stereo systems. When the demo guys start playing their system, even the competitors migrate over.
Yeah, it's a bug light.
It is. It is a bug light. And so that's what got me into it. I wanted to be the center of attention. And this is one way that I was able to do it without driving a Corvette, which is kind of another story. But speaking about 140 dB, I remember, when I was building the Terminator, there was a piece of plywood on the wall, and I had spray painted on there 160 dB because to me that was unobtainium, insane. No one will ever in the history of the planet do 160 dB. And now the competitors do this routinely.
Yeah. So you've mentioned the Corvette thought twice. Let's go there.
Well, as I said, I was an electrical engineering student, and I think I was on like the 5 or 6 year plan. It's taken me a while to get through it. It was hard for me because I was going to class, learning what a resistor was, and I had already built my own mobile phone system that was controlled with an Apple computer, so it just was not engaging. But the place I was buying my stereo equipment, where I was going to get my equipment, was a place called Stereo Dallas, and they had six stores in the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area. The owner of the store, every time he'd see me come in, he'd say, hey, so what's it going to take for you to go to work for us? And I'm like, sorry, dude, not interested. I'm in school. Well, one day he asked me that, and I was a young person that I was at the time. I said, look, buy me a new Corvette, and I'll start today. And I can just remember him, and he used to wear a cowboy hat, and he put his hands behind his head, and he started laughing. He stood up, and he shook my hand, and he goes, you got a deal. And I was like, damn. And we got in his car and went down to the dealership, and I picked out a brand new 1985 fire engine red Corvette. And I mean,
that's priceless.
Of course, it impacted my school. I had to drop out of school. I was only 12 hours away from graduating. So I was a senior. And, for you guys, if you followed me at all, I just finally finished my degree in 2018, or 2020. I got my bachelor's degree from UTA. Finally, it took 40 years. But I was on I never told
on the 40-year plan.
I never told my kids that because they were both in college, and I didn't want them to drop out of school and then use that as an excuse.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point.
So, but anyway, that was when I went to work for Stereo Dallas, my sole responsibility was to be in commercials And they ran commercials on TV, and they ran commercials at the movie theaters. And then every Saturday, all I had to do was show up in front of one of their designated stores and demo my vehicle. And I mean, what a job. I mean, I got paid for that too, by the way. But it got boring after a while. I didn't have anything to do the rest of the week, and I was trying to come up with an idea for topping Eruption. And that's when the very beginnings of the Terminator started to percolate in my head.
Well, that's a great segue. The Terminator.
The Terminator. So the Terminator is a 1960 Cadillac hearse. When I first found it, it was sitting on a field outside of Dallas somewhere. Literally, it had sunk into the ground all the way. It was sitting on the dirt. The wheels had sunk into the dirt. And I saw it and I go, man, that's the perfect vehicle for an SPL vehicle, for a demo car, because it's got low mileage. It has never been driven fast and has plenty of space. It's big. And so I went and talked to the owner. I can't remember if it was a farmhouse or, literally it was out in the country. And I ended up buying the car for $850.
Wow.
And I took it home and...
Now that would be about $8,000 today, right?
Like $80,000 today. But, that was hard work in the beginning because I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the money to do what I really wanted to do. A lot of the equipment that we take for granted, like amplifiers and subs, just were not available. And the biggest subs available at the time were like 12 inches for car audio. They had just come out. So I was using a lot of Pro Sound equipment. So the very first incarnation of the Terminator, I used a 30-inch Electro Voice sub. It's huge. And then there were 4 EV mid-bass drivers, and then I had 8 horn mid-ranges in there. And those things would part your hair. And they have 16 T35 horn tweeters in the roof. And so it was definitely insanely loud. But one of the things that's different about today versus then is in the old days, power was expensive. So we had to focus on efficiency.
Yep.
So efficiency was critical. In order to get high sound pressure levels, you needed subwoofers that were efficient. So the subs, the Pro Sound drivers, they had edge wound voice coils. They were really, really efficient. That big 30-inch sub only handled 75 watts. But I didn't have a lot of power. And compared today, nowadays, the subs handle a tremendous amount of power because power is cheap. You don't have to focus on the efficiency.
Yeah, it's no longer $1 a watt. In some cases, it's 50 cents a watt.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You can get a whole lot of power going on. But that means the woofers have to handle it better now, too.
Yeah, it's like a dog chasing its tail. The more power you have, the heavier the voice coil needs to be, and the heavier the voice coil needs to be, the less efficient the driver, and the more power you need. And plus, and I don't want to, I'm kind of diverging over here, but, the subs are being made for small seal boxes, and so they're designed for inefficiency from the get-go.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Terminator was awesome. That was the first incarnation, and before it was debuted, there was a big show in Dallas. I want to say this is in '85, and I had kept the car. We had actually started building. I built it inside one of the install bays at Stereo Dallas, but I had built a wall around the car. So I moved it in at night. Nobody saw it, and then I built a wall around it. And so the owner would come over there, and he'd ask me what's in there, and I said, it's top secret. It's my secret project, and he'd laugh and leave us alone. So I was getting paid to represent Stereo Dallas by demoing my vehicle and work on my own vehicle, the Terminator, the rest of the time. And so this went on for quite some time, and then it became time to debut the Terminator, and so we tore down one of the walls and pulled it out, and all of my friends followed me, and this is kind of not so good, but we did a procession like a funeral procession. That's totally, and this is a different chapter in my life. This is a more,
I'm early 20s, come on,
yeah, exactly. But we drove it over to the fairgrounds in Dallas, and there was another contest there. And this one I ended up also winning first place. And at this event, I won a Chevy pickup. And so I was able to sell that pickup to help pay off some of the debt. This is the thing. That is when you look at back in your life, and there are places, inflection points in your life where things could have gone one way or the other.
Yep.
John France, who was the chief engineer at Rockford Fosgate at the time, he was at that show. And I was using Rockford product, and I was a huge fan of Rockford. If you look at these old videos, I always have my Rockford shirt on and my Rockford cap on. And anyway, John took notice to who I was. I won the very first, what was called John France Award, and I forget what it was for, but it's a special recognition. But anyway, that got me noticed, and so I wanted to go to work for Rockford, but they didn't have any job openings available at the time. The company was really small. At the same time, another company, Orion Industries, they were also there, and they offered me a job as an engineering assistant. So that is the inflection point. By building that car, it got me noticed by people in power that changed the whole course of my life. And so it got my foot in the door at Orion. I started working for them, and I was at Orion for a couple of years. And every time I go to a show, Ron Trout, Ron.
Oh, yeah.
So Ron, I don't know if you're out there. Ron's the smartest guy I know.
Ron, if you're out there.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's something I'll say. I've been so fortunate because I have been able to work with the brightest minds my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
And through this process of osmosis, it just helps you learn about everything. Well, Ron's not he's the smartest guy I know, but he's not always the most diplomatic, But he would tell me every time we'd go to shows, he's like,
I've got some good Ron
why
stories.
are you running that Fisher-Price gear in your car? Why don't you get some real amps? Or it was always something. He was always needling me. He goes, why don't you go to work for us? And I said, I tried, but you guys wouldn't hire me. Anyway, Ron ended up offering me a job at Rockford, which is where I wanted to be. I took the job. And
what year was that you started at Rockford?
I
started there in September of '88.
So it's around the same time frame, about '88 I want to say it was around Christmas time of '88.
Yeah, I think we started about the same time there.
Yeah.
And Ron was the catalyst because he did the same thing with me.
And the great thing about Ron is he's such an idea guy, and so immediately he's like, we're just hanging out and brainstorming, and he's going, what if we did this? What if we do this? And half the time he had designed the whole year's products, and then we all had to figure out how to build it.
do it.
But he gave me a lot of leash, and I have to say that's another one of those inflection points in life. Without him, I would have never got my foot in the door there, and if I wouldn't have got my foot in the door there, I wouldn't have met so many people in the industry and have the opportunity to build the products that I've been able to design over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Ernie, I know we're supposed to have some questions. Do we have questions?
I believe we do.
Let's see what we got. What is the secret to DB box design? Before you answer that, in one of my classes I did years ago, I had Vance Dickinson as the guest speaker.
Oh, wow.
The author of the Loudspeaker Design Cookbook. Mm-hmm. And several of the students in the class kept pinging him, what's the best box? And he finally stopped and he said, okay, look, it's real simple. There is no such thing as the best box. The best box is the one that sounds the best to you, because sound is really personal.
Exactly. The thing, and Vance is awesome, and I've learned a lot from his books, and I know him, but probably not. I never went to a seminar with him or anything. But here's the thing: it's one thing to design a sub box and to get decent sound pressure level, but the things that the competitors are doing, like in DB drag racing, that's 50% science and 50% art, and they're pushing the envelopes in every dimension, not just power. Just the electric, if you have 80,000 watts of amplification, you have to have enough electrical power to deliver that. Yep. And you have to have speakers that can handle that. And you have to have a vehicle envelope. That means the doors, the windows, that can contain that without blowing to pieces. And so I wish I had a simple answer for you. Why don't you try trial and error and start building stuff, find something that works. You need to log all your data. And TermLab has an awesome logging feature, but you can also do it old school, which is using a pen and paper. You need to take it, monitor, you need to record elevation, temperature, barometric pressure, because atmospheric conditions have a big impact on sound pressure level.
We got another question, Ernie? One more. How much did the Terminator weigh? That's a good question.
And I want to say it's around 7,000 or 8,000 pounds. I don't know exactly. I'm going to take it through a weigh station and see how much it weighs. Hopefully, if I put in lithium batteries, it'll weigh a couple 100 pounds less. But here's how heavy it is. So I'm running 50 series tires on the car, and at the tires I had before, the BF Goodrich, they were inflated to 32 PSI, and the tires always looked mushed. So they were way over. I was using way too much weight for that tire. I just recently replaced the tires. The new tires are 50 series, but they're rated at 50 PSI, and that solved the problem.
So it's safe to say that it's heavy.
It's heavy.
It's heavy.
But not as heavy as a lot of the cars in the lanes these days.
So over the years, seeing we're still talking about the Terminator, how many incarnations of the Terminator has there been? Because I know you've changed that a few times, and I had the privilege of actually driving it out of the shop and back into the shop once.
I can think of 3 major incarnations. So there was the incarnation where it had the 30-inch sub, and then there was an incarnation where it had 3 15s in a pyramid layout with the 412s underneath. And then the current subwoofer incarnation has the 3 24-inch subs in it. But even that incarnation has gone through multiple sub variations. So, I've changed out amplifiers. Like the amps that are in there now, the Power 1000s, those are the original prototypes of the Power 1000C, the ones with the watt meters. So they were those amps were never intended for production, but once the marketing and sales department saw it, they decided they really, really wanted to make that into production.
That's how I met John France the first time. I just started at Rockford in the technical, had somebody calling me about the 1000. It was the one amp I wasn't as familiar with, and I had a question. So I called R&D, and John answered the phone. And he said, why don't you come over to my office and we'll talk about it. What a great guy.
He was, and he was so soft-spoken.
Yes.
Coming from the Orion realm, my first job at Orion, there was like 6 movers and shakers there, and they were all alphas. I mean, not just alphas, they were over the top. And by the way, these are my good friends, and I don't mean this in a derogatory fashion, but sometimes people, they are so passionate about what they believe, and they are convinced that what they know is right. And they were all right. They just couldn't all be right at the same time. And so there was a dynamic there.
That makes for a great dynamic.
But, coming from a world like when I was at Orion, where I wanted to hide under the conference table half the time, and I thought Bernie and Sam were going to go to it. I mean, and then you get to Rockford, and it's just a totally different
world.
It was totally different. It was really professional, and John was really soft-spoken. But, again, being around people like John France and Jim Strickland and all the others, and Ron Trout and you and Sonoda and Mark Lowe, and the list is long. All of those things, Daryl Chapman, Mark Qualley, the ability to be around people that are always moving and shaking, there's this synergy thing. That's an old school word, but it's definitely synergy.
I've got a question about that, so keep going.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was just a great experience for me. And by the way, any of you guys out there, thanks for putting up with me in those days, because I know we were convinced we were always right. In fact, I think the only time I was wrong is when I thought I made a mistake.
Yep.
But that's how it was in that day and age.
Well, and ditto. everybody out there from the years gone by, thank you. One of the things that I always found so unique with working with you and being able to stand over your shoulder from time to time, because my desk, in RTTI, we had 4 desks in an office area, and Wayne's lab, which was gigantic to me at the time, was adjacent to that. So you had to walk through our office to walk into his lab, and he would be in there just absolutely just mind-melding with what he was doing. And it was just, I always found it so fascinating because out of nothingness, these really neat things came out. And one of the coolest things, and I had the pleasure of being able to install one of the first ones, and it was Symmetry. And it was way ahead of its time. Nothing like that in the marketplace had come. Sony had an attempt, but I don't think it was anywhere near as close as what you were doing. Tell us, how did you think of Symmetry? Where did it come from in your brain?
Well, a lot of it goes back to my background in electronics. So when I was working my way through college, I was a technician fixing two-way radios and repeaters. And some of the repeaters used plug-in cards. And also, I had an Apple II computer, which is in the Terminator, by the way. That's super awesome. But the Apple actually had slots for expansion where you could put cards in there, peripheral cards. And then later the IBM PC. But before the IBM PC, when I was at Rockford and I was thinking about audio products, I thought, man, how awesome would it be if you could have a mobile system that had mobile control and signal processing, and it was expandable. So you could start with a fundamental basic unit, and then as time permits, or money really, you could expand that system by purchasing additional cards that plug in. And so that was the original concept for Symmetry, is to make a system that was expandable and where your investment is not obsolete a month or a year after you purchase it. So that was the original concept. Now, I was real fortunate because Ron was such a positive advocate for things that I was doing, and he was able to take and get me in the door with the president of the company, and they basically gave me the sandbox and said, go for it. And so that's what I did.
That's a great description. Made a sandbox just for him.
And the thing about what I was trying to do there was, when I look back at it, it's really complicated at the time. We were doing through-hole technology at the time, which
Yep.
and this was one of the very first products that used surface mount, and that was also one of the biggest challenges that we had to deal with. But it also had microcontrollers and firmware and software, and a lot of our the installers of the day maybe didn't have the computer expertise or the technical expertise or familiarity with that kind of technology. So we had a lot of hurdles. We had first of all, the product design stuff, which I would like to say that everything I designed was always perfect, but I've never designed a perfect product ever. There's always been bugs here and there. A lot of times, you can fix those. Then we had the manufacturing challenges, which I distinctly remember in R5 in our manufacturing building, taking one of the cards, like the crossover card, and whacking it on the table, and all the chips popped off because we were just learning how to do surface mount.
Yeah.
And then you had it was expensive in a time when money was really worth something. And then, the people that were getting it didn't know how to put it in. So we had to develop all the training materials and the videos. So it was a monumental effort.
It was a process, without a doubt.
But when the product was introduced in CES, at the very same year at CES, Sony introduced their mobile ES system. But Symmetry got more PR. The coverage of the Symmetry system got greater coverage than the mobile ES. It really put Rockford Fosgate in a place that it had not been before, which is all of a sudden people are doing apples and apples against a big company like Sony. And of course it was another feather. That product won a lot of awards. I got a lot of awards for that.
Oh, absolutely.
In Design and Innovation Awards, and I can't remember all the audio video magazine awards and stuff like that.
And unfortunately, most of those magazines, all of them, if not, are gone.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, well, evolution happens. So, speaking of evolution, as time went on, and another brainchild popped into your head, I think this is another chicken and egg question. Which came first, DB Drag or TermPro?
Well, TermPro, the box design software, the roots for that go all the way back to 1985 when I was building the Terminator. I was designing box. I wasn't designing box. I would build a box and then see if it worked. And if it worked, you didn't know if it was working to its maximum potential or not. There was so much trial and error, and I'm not a fabricator. I'm the first to admit that. It takes me a long time to build stuff because I don't do it all the time. So I started again using science and engineering to take formulas that can model the performance of loudspeaker systems, and I was able to write software on my Apple II computer that's in the Terminator, by the way.
He's got a video out there that he pulls that Apple II out from underneath a ledge in the back of the Terminator. We're looking at, oh my God, that belongs in a museum somewhere.
And I'm sorry, you guys that are following the Terminator rebuild, I'm working on the Terminator right now. I just got back from Austin Speed Shop. It's so amazing. But we're getting ready for the finals, and I can't work on it, and I haven't had time to do the videos, but they are coming. So thanks for your patience. But anyway, I wrote software, primitive by today's standards, that would allow me to model the performance of a given loudspeaker in a given subwoofer enclosure. And at the time, it was just my box design program. But when I went to work for Perfect Interface, Ron Trout saw my program, and he's like, we should sell that. Our dealers would use that. And so the very first name, that I called it Term 1. After the Terminator.
I remember Term 1, yes.
And then Term 2, and then Term CAD, and TermPro. And actually TermPro is one of my best-selling products. In fact, we sell a lot of that software. In fact, even you guys use TermPro. Everybody used TermPro in the car stereo world to design sub-boxes. So it's not the 1985 version. It's constantly evolving. But that's where the name came from. And I guess I don't have a real creative marketing mind when it comes to naming products. So we got TermPro, Term 1, TermCAD.
No, it works. It works.
But as far as DB Drag, let's put it in perspective. 1998 was the very first DB Drag Racing Finals. 98.
That's 25 years ago.
I had designed the very first version of the software 13 years before that.
Wow.
So when I was doing Eruption and the first incarnation of the Terminator, and I don't want to date myself. I can't believe you're even asking me this stuff. Come on, this is like Back to the Future stuff.
Well, it is Back to the Future, but think about a lot of people that watch this, they weren't even alive when we were doing
Don't say that.
But the whole point is, it's such an inspiration to hear a story about a guy that just, he had a passion for something. You had a passion for something, and you turn that passion into your life. Forget career. Career's but this is what you do. It's an amazing story.
It is.
That's
and
why
here's the thing. And I tell a lot of people. I tell this to people all the time. So I have the best job in the world, and I have friends all over the world. And in this industry, more than anywhere else, the industry is my family, and I see everybody just enough, but not too much.
Yeah.
So I've been at 4 Knowledge Fest events this year, plus the Master Tech show. And, I was at CES 35 years running in a row, consecutive. And so you run into people, and over the years, like you, we can pick right up where we left off. because we've developed this relationship and it's lifelong. And I equate this whole community is like the Hotel California. It's like you can check in, but you can't check
never
out.
leave.
And I'm never, if I were to think, I do this as a hobby, and I do DB drag racing as a hobby. People are thinking, well, it's a business unit and stuff. We're lucky if we break even in DB drag racing. This year we're spending so much on our finals to give everybody a great experience. But I would be doing this no matter what. And to think about not doing it is really hard. Right now, the circle is coming full circle. Started with the Terminator, and I've been hauling and storing that car. It's been in storage for decades. And I have the resources, I have the knowledge, and I have the money to do it right. And that's what I'm doing. I'm restoring it back to better than better, but it's still going to be authentic Terminator.
I can't wait to see the finished product. But what you're saying, it rings so true, and it's so inspirational, and it reminds me of somebody else. And that's Steve Irby, who you met today. Mm-hmm. And he started this company 50 years ago. And I remember a moment in time where it was palpable, and it was in this very room. Because for everybody out there in TV land, this room is actually our main auditorium room, although Ernie and crew have absconded with it and turned it into our UnMasked studio, which is a beautiful thing. But a few years ago, Steve had gotten up in front of the company, and it was in our July meeting, because we meet all 200 employees sitting here once a month and talk about the company for an hour. And he got up in front of everybody and was talking about that he and Becky, his wife, owed the board of directors an exit plan for when he decides it's time to retire. Keep in mind, he's been doing it for 50 years. And he said, well, I'm here to tell you that the exit plan is there's no exit plan.
That's awesome.
And he explained it, but 200 people got up and gave him a standing ovation. Then he explained why. He says, look, an exit plan in retirement is for somebody that's had a job. Mm-hmm. I've never had a job. Mm-hmm. I do this because it's something I love. I'm the endless hobbyist. I play with audio. I've always played with audio. And he said, what am I going to do? Retire and do it at home, and Becky's going to throw me out of the house because I'm tinkering with audio? She already did that once when she threw us out of the garage, and we had to go in the Quonset hut 50 years ago to continue building enclosures. He said, no, this is a passion. This is what I do. This is me.
Yeah.
And I hear the same thing in you.
Well, he's a great guy, and this is the first time I think I've ever met him. You guys could have warned me that he owned the company. When I went in his office, I thought I'd been called into the principal's office. He's like, okay, you two come on in here and have a seat. And I was like, oh boy, what's this all about? But as soon as we started talking, he's super awesome. And I got to say, and I've been to a lot of places, and your facilities here are unbelievable. First of all, I can't believe how big it is. How many? 300,000 square feet?
330,000 square feet.
And there's so much room allocated to engineering and acoustical testing. I was like a kid in a candy store I went in at least 2 anechoic rooms here, and to see all of this stuff is just amazing to see that. And it's definitely not what I was envisioning. And when I've heard about like your the museum and stuff, it's just not. I was thinking of these dusty old shelves and stuff. This is the presentation of the products, and in fact, just the presentation in the R&D development area with all the different products. It's pretty amazing. So I want to commend you guys. It's a fabulous job.
Well, it starts at the top, and Steve inspires all of us to do it, and he gives us the ability to do what it is everybody does. When we work as fantastic teams around here.
That's the nature of a true leader. And I look back at like the people that empower others to do what they do to the best of their ability. And I know Bob Pothier's not out there, but there are people that have given me opportunities that I will never be able to thank them enough for giving me the opportunity. And sometimes if you're in a leadership role, and I can only imagine Steve is in that role. You have to take risk. You have an employee. Do you give them free rein? Do you give them their sandbox to play in? But when they do that, the end result usually is amazing.
Well, and we do some pretty amazing things, as the rest of the UnMasked crew regularly tells everybody. So I'm going to echo it. We get paid to do this. Come on, we get to play with audio all day long. It's just fun. It's great. We could be out there having to sell something that I won't go there. We're live tonight. Anyway, so how we doing here? More questions? More questions?
Yes, sir.
What does Bart do for kicker? Wow, that's a good question. You know something? I just kind of wreak havoc and socially unacceptable and generally obnoxious as a rule. I am the vice president of product strategy and OEM for the company. And I didn't start that way with the company. 22 years ago, I came to work as the Western Regional Sales Manager and took over the Eastern Region, and then was promoted to the Director of International Sales. And then one day, the guy that did have my job came into my office because he was getting ready to retire, and he said, "Hey, Charlie," who used to be our Vice President of Sales and Marketing, asked me today who I thought should replace me. And he said, "I opened my mouth and inserted your foot." You, what do you think? I didn't. Okay, I've been playing with product all my life, but it was kind of a neat transition, taking the sales hat off, which was difficult for me to do because I've been in sales for so long, and putting that hat on. So yeah, it sounds neat, and it's even neater than it sounds, because our team is responsible for listening to everybody that has an idea of new product. And they bring it to us, and we help them coalesce the idea, put together proposals, financials, and all of that. And then we take it to the vice president's team, and we present it, and the person who's responsible for the idea, they come and present their idea and the reasons why and their SWOT analysis. And we yay or nay it at that point. And if we give it a thumbs up, it goes to development, and that's where the process begins. It used to only take anywhere from 18 to 24 months, but ever since the pandemic, that added a year to the process easily, the development of anything.
From what I've seen in my visit here, I mean, you guys are handling that with no difficulty. And when I think back of how I remember the beginnings, Stillwater Design, when they were just making like pickup boxes. Yep. And to grow into something like this, I mean, the facility, and it's not just the size. I mean, everything is just first rate. I mean, look at the studio. It's amazing. And so I think whatever you're doing, it's obviously working. So.
Well, and there's people that are, for instance, Bob Spencer, our Vice President of R&D, he's been with the company as of this summer 35 years and still going strong. Jay Ralston, who is our General Manager, COO, he started sweeping the Quonset hut when he first started working here. I think he was 17 or 18 years old. And now he's the General Manager of the company and guiding it with a very open concept of we're in this together, we're all going to move forward together, and we're going to get to where we need to be together. That's enough about the company, because I could talk about Kicker infinitum all day, every day. But I've been here 22 years, which that's astounding in of itself, that I landed here, and I was very lucky at that time. Do we have another question? David Stevens. Hey, Wayne. David Stevens is here. Who's David Stevens?
Hey, David. How's it going?
Hi, David.
Glad you could tune in. Yes. Okay. The original Orion 225 HCCA. Now, remember, I was a flunky at Orion.
You've never been a flunky, Wayne. I'm sorry.
Just when I see that question, my fingers immediately started hurting, because this was back when we used self-oscillating power supplies, and so the transformers had to be wound by hand. And Mark, the chief engineer, would say, I need 12 different transformers with different permutations. And it uses that magnet wire. And, after you start doing that around the toroid, it would just...
Fingers are bleeding.
Yeah. And so, yes, I was involved with that project. I didn't actually design the amplification, but I was heavily involved with the power supply design. Okay. And by the way, for you guys, one of the reasons we abandoned the power rating scheme in DB drag racing is because of products like the 225 HCCA. This was a 400 watt amplifier that was rated at 25 watts. And so people that use that amplifier could enter a class and totally dominate because the amount of power they had was a lot more substantial than what was rated. It was designed for incredibly low loads. Actually, by this day and age, it's not so low, but it was half ohm load. So.
Well, we were talking about that when we were eating rattlesnake bites earlier. Let's talk about the technology of TermPro today, and with the power measurement, with all of that, what sets it aside? Is it the program? Is it the equipment that goes along with the program? And how is it used in the DB drag world?
So I think you're referring to the TermLab measurement system.
Yes.
And TermLab is actually used by all of the sound off organizations, not just DB drag racing. But what makes it special and what makes it the gold standard for these measurements is the consistency of the measurement from lane to lane and meter to meter. So think about this. In DB drag racing, when competitors are competing against each other, win or lose, it should be because your system is louder than the other guy or less loud than the other guy, not because one lane is reading higher or lower than the other lane.
Which used to be a problem in days of old.
It was. In the very beginning, we were using stick-style microphones. And these microphones had diaphragms on them, like a drum head, basically. And microphones are just not suitable for high sound pressure level measurements. And even with calibration, we used to have piston phone calibrators, and we could calibrate those microphones and put them in a car, and the guy would do 160 dB. I'd stick it back in the calibrator and it would be off by 10 dB. And over a 10-minute period of time, it would slowly come back and be close, but it was never the same. And both lanes were doing this. So, and it wasn't just that. It was affected by temperature, by any kind of atmospheric. It's not like if it was humid, if you drop the microphone, it could damage it, so it wouldn't work correctly ever again, and they're expensive. And so at the 2001 DB Drag Finals, I literally felt like I was about to have a heart attack, and this is for real. I was trying so hard to give everyone a level playing field, but we just had all kinds of problems with the microphones reading consistently.
Is that the one in Memphis?
I don't remember where it was. I have PTSD from that show. So
I don't mean to bring back memories.
And it wasn't just
no
the
flashbacks.
sound. It was the other problem with the microphone is some of the judges had been using these suction cup, these big ass suction cup mic stand holders that would attach to the windshield. But as the windshield would vibrate, the microphone would move, but the inertia the diaphragm would want to stay in place. So you were inducing a mechanical component into the sound pressure level as well. So after that show, I said, there's got to be a better way. And I went back and I started thinking about everything I could think of. I thought about, standard atmospheric pressure is 14.7 PSI. Anyway, I found a pressure transducer that's made for measuring the manifold pressure inside automobile engine. And I ended up designing a circuit for that, and it measures from 0 to 30 PSI, which is perfect. And the rest is that was a game changer of unbelievable proportions for sound off. I mean, if you ask competitors who had been there, and over time in where we're at now, that was one of those inflection points in measurement capabilities. Now, there's a lot of intellectual property theft. I deal with that all the time, but nothing comes close to TermLab when it comes to measuring sound pressure level. That product won a design and engineering award at CES that year, the sensor technology. So I invented that. Now, over the years, TermLab has gone through multiple iterations. The very first units were analog. And then when the Magnum came out, the system was all digital, so it had 16 times the resolution. It's not affected by the cables. There's no resistive components in the measurements any longer. Lots of diagnostics, and it's continuous. And the TermLab system is software and hardware, and the software is evolving continuously, adding new features to it all the time. But about 3 years ago, and I'm bad on time, so
that's okay.
Several years ago, long time ago, who knows when, introduced the power probe for measuring power. And that was also a game changer because for the first time, judges could now categorize, or organizations could categorize competitors based on their power, like we did in the very beginning. But we didn't have to rely on what the amps were rated at. If somebody's in a 1,000-watt class and they come into the lanes with a 50,000-watt amp, as long as they don't go over 1,000 watts, they're good. And so that made a huge difference on participation in the lanes. And now I'm pretty sure most of the sound-off organizations use at least some power-based classes, and the Power Probe made that possible.
So it levels the playing field.
It does.
So that makes an interesting segue. For the professional installers and the DIY guys out there as well, but for the professional installers, what's the benefit to having TermPro in their toolbox?
The box software or the measurement system, or both?
Or both.
Well, when it comes to subwoofer enclosure design, if you're not using software, either my software or some software, you're just guessing. And if you think for a minute that using a recommended box from a manufacturer is going to give you the best performance, you're sadly mistaken. Here's the reality. The only way to get what you're really after is you need to have a consultation with your customer. You need to ask them, what kind of music do you listen to? How loud do you listen to your music? How much space do you have available? Are you going to allow me to have inside your vehicle to build this box? How much power, how much money are you going to spend? What kind of subs are you going to use? All of these things are important factors in the design of a good subwoofer enclosure. Now, if I see the use of the TermPro, the box software, in two ways. First of all, it gives the installer the ability to do what if. What if I do this? How does that affect the performance, the frequency response, and the sound pressure level, and the reliability? And what if I change that? How does that affect things? And sometimes when you're building a box, it may not be possible to actually build that box and realize it in a car. So TermPro allows you to do all these what-if scenarios. You can do seal, vented, bandpass enclosures. You can model it in 3D. It gives you the blueprints for each panel. You can position the holes on the box. You can see if the port's going to impact the driver, or the driver magnet structure is going to hit the back wall. You can do all of those things. You can even export. You can export files that can be used in a CNC machine to cut the wood for you. So the second factor that's, I think, important about TermPro is if I were a salesperson, I would be using the TermPro program on the sales floor as part of my consultation. So you're asking, what kind of music do you listen to? How loud do you listen to it? And on TermPro, I can pull up and it shows you the different boxes, and the advantages and disadvantages of each one are listed right there. So you've got your talking points, and you're talking to the customer, well, we could do a vented box, and it gives you extended low frequency performance, it gives you higher output levels. So you're talking to them and they're seeing you work with it right on the computer. So it's legitimizing what you're saying, and they know now it's not just a spin job. Because you go into some stereo store and they're trying to sell you. When I was at Stereo Dallas, you wouldn't believe the things I heard. That's why I wasn't in sales. But this is the thing. It could legitimize you as a and it gives added value. It adds value to the whole experience. So that's the TermPro aspect. Now the TermLab stuff can be used daily. In fact, anybody that's doing SPL, they are doing who knows how many measurements every day. But if I was a retailer, if you're using it, you can do SPL measurements. You can see what kind of changes. Like if a guy comes in and he wants to become a competitor, you need to at least tune his system so that it maximizes performance. What frequency should he play? You know, because every car's got a different frequency that's going to maximize their score. You know, when you're doing the tuning, you can measure that, or measure the impedance of the driver, you know, the box driver combination, real world impedance, and TermLab will show you that. It has a full bandwidth spectrum analyzer. If you want to do sound quality stuff, you can use it for that. It has some really amazing and powerful data logging and analysis capabilities, and very complex, but we could spend a lot of time on that. But essentially, it allows you to save every measurement. It takes atmospheric conditions into account, because the atmospherics have a huge impact on performance. If you're at sea level, you'll have one type of performance, and if you're up at 2,000 or 3,000 feet, it's something totally different. And the note you play is totally different. So I think, you know, the product can be, and it is. We both of those products are just home runs for us. And we sell a lot of it, and the people that buy it, every time we come out with a software update, adds new features, new capabilities, and they retain their original investment.
You just gave me a great idea, an excuse to have you back on the show. I think
you have to give me some more of that Texas Roadhouse.
Oh, absolutely.
That was great.
Well, next time we'll go to Clicks. That's a whole different story.
Okay.
Unique place. But we're going to have you back. And the next show, we'll just do nothing but TermPro, and you can actually show people it and how it's operating and everything.
Sure.
I think that'd be great. Ernie, we have any more questions?
We got to do DP drag.
Let's see what we got. What's your favorite kicker product, Wayne?
You know, I'm stuck in the 80s. When I was walking through your display area, it was, I would have to say, you know, I'm always attracted to the big stuff, you know, the big subs. Remember I was asking about those subs? And
we were in the museum, and he walked right up to the original Solo X18 and said, "What's this one?" And I'm sitting here staring at something in the background back there. Has that been on camera before?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Here, talk for a minute. Yeah, no kidding. I'm not that weak. I'm not that old and feeble.
you know, I would like to be able to give you a more definitive answer, but I haven't kept up to date on all the, God, look at that.
Coming soon, and I know there's been some people saying, "Oh, it's never going to happen," all that sort of stuff. I'm here to tell you, people, it's really close. It's so close, it's not even funny, and it's amazing. That is the new Solo X.
Wow. It's a massive, massive product.
Yeah, something stuck to that magnet. Anyway, let's have another question, Ernie. It's about time to go to a break. Have you checked out this pill of other?
Yes, great question. So I think what they're referring to is what we call Ponca DAO or open show. It's mostly prevalent in South America, but you can also find it in Miami and a few other places. This is the most insane thing. You can't even believe it. So the back of vehicles will be, like pickups will have a bed that lifts up, and it'll just be a bunch of mid-bass drivers and compression horns. And it is so loud. It's not just sound pressure loud. It's the frequencies that are being reproduced, or those frequencies that our ears are really sensitive to. So here's a story for you, and this is a true story. I was in Brazil for the DB Drag South American Finals 4 or 5 years ago, and there was a 53-foot semi there, and it had over 1 million watts of amplification. And on the side of that, the entire side of that 53-foot trailer were 18-inch subs. I don't even know how many, hundreds of them. When that thing was playing, I couldn't see. I was 100 feet away. I could not breathe. It was sucking, the air was stuck in my throat. You know what I mean? And my eyes were crossed. I mean, it was the most uncomfortable, disorienting. I felt like I'd been conked in the head with a Coke bottle continuously. It's like, because they play the music they play, it's like, ba 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 ba.
Oh yeah,
Totally ba ba. You know, like, and it was so intense, and so that is the most insane. We would never, ever be able to do that here in the United States.
Oh no, the cops would be all over it.
I mean, we'd be on the news.
Yeah.
If we did something like that, the Homeland Security would come. I mean, it's just. But over there, and you could hear it. We stopped. We were over a mile away, and I could hear it clear as day. They were judging those cars and that truck by ear. And this is no lie. They would back two of those trucks up back to back with maybe 10 feet between them. And the spectators would stand in between them and decide which car was louder based on listening to it. And I can't even imagine. I was wearing earplugs and it was hurting my ears.
I was at an event down in Colombia, and similar thing, although not a semi-truck, but all the SPL vehicles, and they had lights and everything else, and we were in a parking garage. Imagine that one, so Echo Central. And the audience was surrounding part of the parking structure, watching it, and each vehicle would get out, and they would fire it up, open the doors, open the back, and then they would drive around while it's hammering as hard as possible. The car was dancing to its own music, and they would have dance-offs, and the audience decided who was the best. It was, again, ear-bleeding loud, just crazy stuff. But really, I mean, these guys were really creative in what they did and how they built it. It's just amazing. They take it to that extreme.
You know, the thing is, it doesn't, that kind of sound doesn't appeal to me. And this is a personal thing. Yeah. I like competition. I like full range, low bass, balanced mids, balanced highs, like at a concert. Now, concerts usually don't sound good, but they compensate for the sound quality with quantity.
Yes.
And I like that kind of sound, you know, where it just like, I was in California a few years ago and a guy waited all day to demo for me, and he put in AC/DC and that Thunderstruck track. I have never heard anything so awesome ever. And I don't know who the guy was. I mean, if you're out there, that was amazing. But and I was wearing earplugs, but when it kicked in, it was just, I mean, you know, when you get goosebumps, and that's the kind of impactful, and you know, that was music. It was loud, but it wasn't a Coke bottle beating me on the head like the stuff down there.
But it is all preference. I remember one year at Daytona Beach, we had the kicker rig set up outside, and we had vehicles going, and people were dancing, and a buddy of mine who passed away a couple years ago was one of the sound cue judges. And he was walking by, and he looked at me and said, "That's not music." And I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. That right there is what pays for you and I to do what we've done all these years. To them, it's music. You may not like it because you're an old guy, but they like it. So don't say that's not music, because it's all music.
Yeah.
Music makes the world go round, no matter what kind of music it is." So, one last question, then we're going to go to a break.
Well, that's a good question.
Well, one of the things that's going to happen, folks, and we've got another question after the break that we're going to answer to this fact, is with the push to EVs. And I had the pleasure today of driving around town, and I picked up Wayne at the hotel in it, our new Hummer. Full electric vehicle, 9,000 pounds of pure delight. And yeah, the technology and electronics is going to have to start adapting to that type of a world, which is somewhat different, don't you think?
I do. I mean, it's inevitable. Here's what I'd like to see. We've been on this trend towards massive power and low efficiency. I would like to see us kind of migrate back more towards high efficiency systems, which don't require as much power, because right now, it's my understanding, and I don't have an EV. In Texas, an EV is wishful thinking. I can't even go to town on a charge, you know, and we don't even have enough electricity right now to run the air conditioners. But it's my understanding that like the 12-volt system in the vehicle is a completely independent, it doesn't use the same.
That's right.
And so there's probably very limited amount of power available for 20,000 watts or 10,000 watts of amplification. So, you know, we've got a little bit of time. I mean,
not a lot.
You know,
it's happening now.
It's happening. And, you know, of course, we're seeing full on, everything's integrated with the, here's the thing. This is my prediction. Apple's going to come out with the Apple Car. It's going to be autonomous, self-driving service where you don't own it. Think of Uber, but as a subscription. So when you want to go to town or wherever, on your phone, you just click the button. And when you think about the cost of vehicle ownership, and vehicles are so expensive, and insurance is so expensive, maintenance is so expensive, fuel is so expensive. Putting in a charging system for your new EV is so expensive. It's going to be like housing, where it's going to be like airplanes. We see the same thing. You're a pilot, and I'm a pilot, and a long time ago, airplanes became so expensive that people started doing fractional ownership, and so these are things that are going to impact everyone in 12 volt. But the companies that can adapt and innovate and provide solutions to real world problems, and you can see you guys have, and there are people out there that have the expertise to do that. They're the ones that are going to benefit.
Yep.
So I'm excited actually to see what's going to come out. Every year we get access to new technology. The cost for manufacturing, the processing power that's available is, I mean, when I see how much amps cost these days, I can't even believe how cheap they are.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And the signal processors and what they do for how much they sell for, I just can't believe it.
Well, Ernie, I think it's time to go to a break. When we get back from the break, we're going to answer a few real-world tech questions that our tech guys get on a regular basis, and there's some good ones in here that we've dealt with. We're going to have fun with fail picks and fun with cool install picks. We're going to talk about some events. We're also going to talk a little bit more about DB Drag Finals coming up, and keep in mind it's the 25th anniversary of DB Drag Finals. The places that are going to be, you know, third, second, and first place. Monthly prize with Wayne, and then we'll pull it to a close. So stay there. Same Bart channel, same Bart time. Don't go away. I had to throw it in there. Yeah. Batman reference.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we'll be back in just a minute.
Something bad, your hands on the wheel, got a sexy touch. It's enough to make me and my Chevy blush. So long. Take it all off of that highway. Turn me on, I'll let you drive, babe. You can take it fast as you want to. Girl, little dirty looks damn good on you. Start me up, Stones on the radio. Girl, I love it when you let go. Don't waste your way in the wrong way. Get off on 4x4 play.
You know, I got to tell you, when Ernie called me a couple weeks ago and said, hey, Bart, I need a favor. We had a little scheduling hiccup, and I need you to guest host the show. I'll be honest, I was nervous. Live TV, all that sort of stuff. But, you know, particularly with Wayne here, my old friend, I've been having such a blast. I didn't even realize that how much time has flown by. And we've just been rapping and, you know, bringing up all kinds of neat stuff. So we're going to keep that going for a few more minutes, but we're going to talk about do some house cleaning. You know, I was given very specific instructions on some of this stuff. So the first question we've got, and we have some answers here, is from Mike. And Mike, thanks for your question. I bought your KXA 1200.1 amplifier. I was intending on installing it in my 2022 Tesla Model S Plaid. The shop that was going to install it said it cannot be done because my Tesla runs on a 16-volt system. I'm trying to do some research to see if it's possible, what if any additional equipment I may need, etc. I read that some amplifiers are capable of handling higher 12-volt systems, but I cannot find anything specific to the model I purchased. Please help. Okay, Mike, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Unfortunately, it's not going to work in your Plaid with the current electrical system that's there. We developed our amplifiers, and of course, you know, 99.9% of the automobiles out there work on a 12-volt system, which when your battery float voltage is typically about 12.5, alternator kicks in, start charging it. When it's going full robust charge, it reaches up as high as 14.4. Our amplifiers will go into protection when there's an overvoltage scenario. When it approaches 16 volts, and the amplifier will stop operating in order to protect itself. There's also a low voltage component of that down below 10.5. So we're working on it. We're going to come up with some solutions, but right now we do not have a solution for that one. So I do have to apologize on that. Next question. A few weeks ago, I bought a Kicker Key 204, which I got to tell you is really cool amplifier, patented from head to toe on the algorithms, from Best Buy. I finally got a chance to install it last week in my wife's 2022 Ford Maverick. Neat little Ford pickup truck. Been seeing a bunch of them around town, but of course we're in Oklahoma, which is pickup country. I'm not getting any sound out of the speakers after the install, and I've tried all the configurations of the switches and turn on options. When attempting DC offset, the amp does not power on with or without the radio detect button. When I hook up the remote turn-on wire, I can get power but no sound with or without the radio detect button. I've checked voltage on the plugs and they're all checked good. I do get the power light on the back of the amplifier, and when I press the button on the mic, I can hear very faint beeps from the speakers but nothing else. I'm not sure what else to do, and I see from my iPhone. Well, there's an interesting thing that the auto manufacturers have instituted in their head units, and if the amplifier doesn't see a specific impedance load on the speaker outputs, it will stop or mute the output of the head unit. And so you just won't get any sound through it. You're not creating a problem or breaking anything, but you're not getting anything. We do have a solution for that. It's called KISS load. Now, the amplifier does have a circuit that compensates for that, but unfortunately there are some of the newer vehicles, like the Maverick, that requires an additional assistance in that. So if you get that, and Ernie, I did say that right, it is the KISS load in this particular case, yes? Yes, sir. So if you go back to your shop, to Best Buy, and look for the KISS load, or go to kicker.com, that should solve your problem. Next one, this is a marine question. Just installed a KMA 360 using the Kicker power cables as well. Now, I don't have the information on which kit they were using. We do make marine-specific kits. But if you're using just the standard 12-volt kit, there might be a challenge there with the ground wire itself because it's not long enough to go the full length. Getting interference noise when the depth finder is turned on. Turn it off, interference goes away. Your thoughts on how to fix. Also, the amp seems to be warm to the touch without even pushing music through it. Let me know your thoughts on that too. What do you think, Tim? Yeah? Let's take a look at something. Not that one. There we go. I'm looking through the bottom of my bifocals here. I'm doing that. These aren't my computer glasses. Okay, now let me address the first part of that. That's the easy part, the warmth of the amplifier. Our amplifiers, particularly the KMA amplifiers, they're going to run a little warm anyway to the touch because when they power up, they're passing current and they're doing their thing, even when playing at a low volume. That's normal. They can play up to a very high temperature, which it'll get pretty toasty to the hand. You won't necessarily want to hold on to it for a long period of time, but you're not going to have a problem. When the amplifier gets into a full thermal problem, it backs down its output so that it starts to cool off. And ultimately, if it just continues to perpetuate, it will turn off, cool down, and resume operation. So that aspect of it's not a big deal. The other issue is the noise from the depth finder. Now, I don't know which model depth finder you're using. I don't know how it's wired. There can be a couple of issues going on. One of those issues could be the signal, the RCA cables going to your amplifier are passing either by or in parallel, right along the same path as the power lines for the depth finder. And the depth finder might be creating noise and radiating out into the RCAs. One of the simplest things you can possibly do in this particular case, and I also don't know what head unit you're using, but instead of using the RCAs or low-level output of the head unit into the amplifier, our amplifiers are designed to take speaker-level output into the amplifier. So use the speaker-level output of your head unit, which gives you a higher signal-to-noise ratio output into the circuit, which can overcome that noise. That's something to try. It's going to be a trial and error. And maybe, this is Ryan, maybe if you give our guys a call and give us a little bit more information, head unit, location of the depth finder, what its power path, power and ground, and other electronics paths are, how close is it to your radio, how close is it to the signal wires. That'll help you diagnose the problem. We'll get through this together and we can overcome the problem. So, that being said, next on the agenda, let me close that out because Ernie's going to grab my computer here in a second and show it to the world. And yes, I use a Mac. I'm proud of that too. Failed picks. Oh boy. Let's see. It's failed pick time, Ernie.
I'm not getting a feed on your computer. Can you check that for me?
Well, let me undo that. Plug it back in. You got it now.
I've got it, yes.
Failed pick number 1. I bet that's a great center channel. Gives you that good center stage there and everything. Woohoo! Okay, failed pick number 2. Sorry, I'm laughing. This just reminds me of days gone by. Wayne, you remember back in the day, the 78, 79, Cutlasses and Monte Carlos and everything, all the 6x9s on top of the 4x10 package tray? It kind of makes me think of that. I bet that bass sounds really good. And you know, if you recognize this as yours, we're just having a little fun. Give us a call. We'll try and help you get it better. We're not naming any names here. Now that, I bet you that gets loud. What do you think?
Yeah.
It might not image the best or sound the greatest, but boy, I bet it gets loud. Pretty obnoxious. I don't know what to say about this one.
I thought that was a vanity at first. I mean, it looks like a his and hers, sink or something.
I just don't know.
When you look under the sink, I mean, where do you shut off the water?
I do like the Amazon box that it might be where the amplifier is hiding. I'm not really sure.
No, it's over there behind the battery.
Oh, it's behind the battery. Ah, okay. Nice. Now, can anybody tell me what's wrong with this picture? Come on, let's see some responses on it. Everybody's laughing. Oh, hidden wires behind the Amazon box. Come on, what is it? What is it? Yeah, they do look like plant holders from the previous picture. There it is. Plastic. Yay, forgot to take the cap off the terminal. I always heard plastic was a great conductor. Didn't you hear that? But when it gets really hot, it melts. And then it's the opposite of a fuse.
If he had a regular terminal there, you wouldn't have been able to get it over the plastic.
That's a good one. Okay, let's go to cool picks. Let me move that over a little bit there so you can see it. Cool picks.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's nice. That's nice. That's cool. Green is not my favorite color, although it is my wife's favorite color. And I'll tell you, when I bought my Cherokee, it's got green accent stripes on the plane. And one of the things my wife said to me, he says, I don't care what you do with your airplane, but you cannot repaint it and change the color. Green stays. Yes, dear. She's the boss. More green. That's a good one. Check that out. The whole vehicle's green. That's a green machine. That looks good. I bet that plays loud too. Look at those cans.
Yeah.
And those cans play loud. I heard that too. That's a clean install. That looks really good. Nice. Good looking car. Pro audio. That's clean. Nice spot there, and here's a distant shot of it. So you can see close up, distant shot. That works. And that's a clean install. Nice use of wire ties and everything. Oh, that's another thing. In people, when I say this, like in R&D or something, I had to bring a picture and prove it. We were talking about different colored wires in some of our wire harnesses we use for some of our OE projects. And I made the offhanded comment, hey, at least we're not in aviation where all wires are white.
Yeah.
Every single wire in the aircraft is white.
Yeah, I think they're capped on, flame resistant.
Yeah, it's crazy. But they're white. Somebody said, how do you know which one's which? You don't. Okay, that's all the pictures. Back to live action. Let's see, what's next on the list now? Let's see here. Events. September 16th, the XRV will be at the Sand Sports Super Show in Costa Mesa. We've attended that show several times in the past years. It is everything there is to know about side-by-sides and off-road vehicles, and it's a lot of fun, and our crew is going to be out there. Go by and say hey to them. Some of our guys that, other companies that we do business with, SSV Works uses a lot of kicker gear in their stuff. Motor Trike uses, as a matter of fact, there used to be one back there somewhere, uses a lot of kicker in their overhead for side-by-sides. And there's some extra special stuff that's going to be premiering there at the show. So check it out. That's this coming weekend in Costa Mesa. And like I said, we got DB Drag right around the corner next month, 25th anniversary. And to make it even cooler, Wayne has got an idea for a great prize program. What do you got, Wayne?
So what we're going to do is we're going to give out 3 copies of the TermPro enclosure design software. And those are normally $249. So over the next 3 months, you guys will be awarding that to the winners.
Right on. That's cool. That's a great value. And you guys know where to go to register, and register as many times as you want. And there's going to be, over the next 3 months, 3 happy winners on that one. And we were talking also about 3rd place, 2nd place, and 1st place prizes.
Yeah, so Bill's going to bring up 3rd place, 2nd place, 1st place.
Oh, okay. On the screen. Well, that's from tonight's deal, right? Okay. See, I'm the guest host. I don't know all these things, but I'm learning. Okay, winner number 3 is Jonathan H. from California. Yay!
Congratulations. What did you win?
What did he win?
You won that Hummer?
Winner number 2 is Brad M. from Oklahoma. Yes, you can. I'll segue to that here in a second. And tonight's grand prize winner is Chris O from Florida. Congratulations, everybody. Let's give them all a big hand. Come on. Clap, 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 golf claps. And Bill is going to scroll across the screen what they won. So, is our parting shot.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. I was only kidding.
All of them get koozies.
All of them get koozies.
Unmasked t-shirt.
Unmasked t-shirt.
And then the 3 levels of headphones for 3, 2, 1. Is it the 300s or the 200s?
The 200s.
The 200s. The Tabers.
400.
400.
400s. EB 400s for third place. Is it the Tabers for 2?
Must be.
And then the cushion C's for 1.
Oh, okay. And unmasked, but you're not getting this shirt. You're getting the t-shirt. Yeah. And then I have my unmasked thing that says my name on it. TermPro. Okay, so throat getting dry. Last topic, parting shot. Wayne's going to give us a little insight to the upcoming finals.
All right, thanks for letting me talk about this. So I'm really, really excited about our upcoming finals. This is the 25th anniversary of the DB Drag Racing World Finals. So to make this special, we actually rented out the entire convention center in Owensboro, Kentucky. This is a state-of-the-art facility. There are pictures of it online and on our website. It takes place on October 1st and 2nd. We're really rolling out the red carpet, not just for the competitors, but also for other people that are interested in audio. So we call it an old school meetup. Think of it as a family reunion for people that have been involved in audio. So there are people that go all the way back to the very beginning of DB Drag Racing who are attending this show. And so we have not only the competition, which is awesome, and everybody that comes to the show, they get a commemorative duffel bag, a commemorative racing jersey, commemorative cap, and also a banner, because everyone was stealing my banner, so we decided we're just going to give everybody a banner.
There you go.
And plus, it's full of swag from all of the sponsors and the manufacturers. I don't know what you guys are contributing.
We are contributing.
And then we have a competitor party, and it's with a barbecue dinner. That's for all of the competitors. With an axe throwing competition.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm not sure how that's going to go over after a few too many tequilas.
Yeah, might be.
And then we have a hospitality suite set up at the convention center with snacks and beverages where people can reacquaint, just like we have done. There are other people, because let's be real, in my opinion, half of the reason people do this is the social aspect. So
absolutely,
the best times they get together, you get to hang out, you get to catch up. And so we've got people, like I said, that go all the way back to the beginning of DB Drag Racing. They're all going to be there. So we have a lot of things taking place at the show. We have a raffle with some amazing prizes, and I'm hoping to weasel. Solis told me to weasel something out of you guys. but you know, as part of the raffle, we're going to give away these prizes at right before the awards ceremony. And speaking of awards, so the trophies are almost 7 feet tall. I don't know exactly. They're taller than me.
Well, that's a lot taller than me.
And this year the rings are they're the same type of class ring that you would get at a university. So they're really,
nice.
really high quality. You know, and we have great sponsors for all of this. So I could spend a lot of time thanking all of our sponsors. But anyway, everyone is invited. You don't have to be a competitor. In fact, even if you're not a competitor, you just want to hang out, you're welcome to come. You can go to TermPro.com. That's where the registration is. And everything's all inclusive. So, you know, if you can register and get you access to the show both days, plus the party, plus the hospitality suite. And so I'm just really, really excited about it. We've treated this show this year the same way I told Solis, and when we were planning it, this is going to be like a wedding reception. It's about the celebration. So when you think about all of the hundreds of thousands of people that have participated in DB Drag Racing, and we've done over 20,000 shows since 1998.
Wow.
So, and we're in 42 countries. Now, of course, our friends in Europe and other places won't, right now there's still challenges over there as far as doing public gatherings, but This is going to be a really amazing show. I know it's going to be the best event that we've ever done. We haven't held back anywhere, and the goal is to make this the most memorable, enjoyable time that anyone has ever had at a finals event.
Right on.
And that's on October 1st and 2nd, in Owensboro, Kentucky. And by the way, the party's at a brew pub, so we're all in.
That's great.
So I hope to see you guys out there.
Well, it's been a great evening. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us and great questions. And you guys are what make us who we are. I mean, without you, this is just an empty building. So thank you, and have a great night, and we'll see you in a couple weeks at the next UnMasked. Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks for having me.